Until last weekend, the weather here in central Iowa was not a factor in the caucus races. However, before it became really cold early this week, last Saturday there was a freezing rain. It was unlike any freezing rain I've ever encountered because it was 1/4 of an inch thick. I was scheduled to attend a Joe Biden speech at Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa, which is south and east of Des Moines. I wondered all day if the Biden event would be canceled, and it was not. The Biden event at Simpson College was a disappointment. I had tracked Joe's progress from his early speech in Fort Dodge to his later speech in Ames, the home of Iowa State. He had switched from, let's go back to the good old days of Obama-Biden, to the country has moved on. There are new and different problems, and we need different solutions for them. I wanted to see him a third time to see if that progress had continued. The answer was inconclusive. What happened at the Biden speech was relatively simple. He was introduced by Representative Abby Finkenauer, a now 32-year-old member of the U.S. House of Representatives. She was one of 2 Democratic women elected in the fall of 2018. They switched 2 seats from Republican to Democratic. She was an impressive speaker, and I recorded much of what she said on my iPhone. Unfortunately, I thought she impressed Joe Biden too.
He suffered one of the worst tragedies that no one can imagine suffering. He lost his wife, he lost his daughter, he had 2 sons that were critically injured.
That, of course, was a very tragic event. The problem is that Joe has been our vice president for 8 years, and most well-informed or even informed voters know that family history. Thus, we did not need Abby to tell us about it at length, and we didn't need Joe to tell us about it either. It appeared to me that he got sidetracked by that. The event started 30 minutes late. The crowd was large because it was a small venue, which is a political trick I'm seeing more and more often in Iowa. In terms of seating, I wouldn't be surprised if there were no more than 200 folding chairs in this room, and they crammed another 100 or 150 people into the room for a total audience of what, 300, 350? On the steps up, I was in the middle of a group of high school students from Illinois whose teacher had wisely brought them from Illinois, an adjoining state, to Iowa to watch the caucuses in person. They had previously seen Elizabeth Warren. They were catching Joe Biden. I'm not sure who they were going to see next. The Biden campaign wisely positioned them behind the candidate so that all these young faces were readily visible to the TV cameras that were filming him. With Joe's other 2 appearances, I've put up 2 videos each, the stump speech and the question and answer session. This Simpson College appearance does not deserve 2 videos. There's a contest going on between the progressives and the moderates, and it behooves Joe to move more in the direction of progressives. I think he wants to do that. I think he is naturally more of a progressive. But it is important that he tell the Iowa Democratic voters that that's the direction he's headed in. That didn't happen at this event.
Now, I grew up as a kid, and I hadn't planned on going this route, but I grew up a kid who used to stutter. And when you stutter, everybody thinks you're stupid. They can make fun of you. You learn what bullies are really like. It's awful hard to ask the lovely girl, would you go to the dance with me? You feel like a darn fool, and people make a lot of fun of you. Until I saw those folks come out of the fields in Charlottesville, carrying torches. Close your eyes, remember what you saw on television. Their veins in their necks contorted, bulging. Their faces contorted, preaching and shouting the same anti-Semitic vile that was chanted in the streets of Europe in the late 20s and early 30s. Accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacists, David Duke saying that this is why we elected him, return America. And I thought, how can this possibly be? And a young woman was killed, and the president was asked to respond. And you know what he said? Remember, he said there were very fine people on both sides. No president, this is not hyperbole, no president's ever said anything like that in American history. Never equated hate with those who are fighting against hate. And so, folks, that's when I decided I wanted to get engaged. I had to get involved. And so, when I announced I was running for 3 reasons. One, to restore the soul of America. I wrote an article for the Atlantic magazine saying that we have to restore the soul of America. And secondly, to rebuild the middle class, because the middle class is getting clobbered. The middle class is being left behind. Working class people don't have an option. When the middle class does well, everybody does well. The third thing I suggested we had to do was we have to unite the country. And I know I'm told that's naive. I love my colleagues. There's a lot of good people running for the nomination. But they say, you know, Joe Biden's been around a long time, but he's really naive. You can't unite the country. Well, guess what? If you can't unite the country, we're in desperate trouble. And I'm confident we can, and we have to. I think the American public is ready. This corny show has come through town once, and they found out with Trump there's no P under any one of the 3 shells. You guys represent the least prejudiced, the best educated, the most qualified generation in American history. And what's changing is, it wasn't the case when just 5 years ago. You're now willing to get engaged. If you vote in the same percentage that the average voter in America votes, there would have been 5.2 million more voters last year. In the last election. You can own this election, and you are a different generation. In a way, you have so much to offer. You're devoid of the deep-seated prejudices we have. You're so damn bright and well-educated. And so I'm excited about the prospect of being a transition to an entire new generation of leadership in this country. And I'm confident it can be done. If my mother were here, she'd say, Joey, hush up and take some questions. So folks, let me take some questions. And I have been a gigantic supporter of Social Security from the beginning. And I have a detailed plan as what to do with Social Security to make sure that the good news is people are living longer. The bad news is they're running out of the coverage their Social Security can cover. And so what I do is I make sure that we expand Social Security coverage in the following way. Right now, you pay a percentage of your salary up to, I think it's now up to $131,000. After that, everybody pays the same percentage of salary no matter how much they make. So what I'm proposing, and we'll get it done, is that everybody making over $400,000 will have to say the same percentage you pay if you're making $60,000. 6.5%, you pay 6.5% of your salary at $400,000 or $800,000 or $1 million or $20 million. And what that will do is no punishment, just pay the same percentage as everybody else is paying. You'll end up being able to do 3 things. 1, increase the payments for those seniors who are living in the super elderly. They can have more money to be able to stay in their homes and be able to do what they have to do and live the way they want to live. Secondly, there's a lot of people, and maybe you know your grandmoms and grandpops, who when one dies, their Social Security, the other drops. We'll be able to equalize that back so it doesn't drop. And thirdly, and equally as importantly, that would make Social Security solvent for all of you. So it's around when you're able to retire, because that's how much money it would raise. Number 1, with regard to health care, there's a way to make sure we're finally reached the point that I've been arguing for a long, long time, that health care is a right, not a privilege. Now the question is, what's the best way to make sure you can do it and do it quickly and do it in a way that you don't raise people's taxes exponentially? Well, number 1, I'd take Obamacare and do what Barack and I wanted to do in the first place, but couldn't get the votes to get it done. And by the way, 5 presidents tried to expand health care, couldn't do it until we got it done. And I was the guy that was sent to the floor of the House to make sure that, in the Senate, to make sure the Democrats voted for it, okay? That was my job, and we got it passed. But number 2, we wanted to add what we call a public option. meaning that if in fact you concluded that you wanted to buy into a Medicare option, you could buy into a Medicare. You didn't have to go to Medicare, but you could buy into it. And if you were in a position where you qualified for Medicaid, you automatically would be enrolled. You'd be free automatically, providing a competition with the insurance companies that could not be fooled around with, number one. So number two, make sure that we lower drug prices. And the way you do that is you set limits on what they do, like they do in Germany. You say, this is what you invested, drug company, in producing this drug. You're able to charge Y this much for it, and you can never charge more than that beyond the price of medical inflation. So you can't do what they did with EpiPens and all these ridiculous, like when I increased the subsidies to buy into Medicare, to Obamacare, and it cost $740 billion over 10 years. That's a lot of money. But I've laid out in detail, I won't go into it now with you, but if you want to afterwards, I can go to you, give you copies of it, how we can in fact deal with eliminating the most egregious parts of the president's $1.9 trillion tax cut. I don't just have a wealth tax, I reorganize the way in which our tax system works, which I've worked on my whole career. For example, there's no reason why somebody who makes a capital gain should pay at pay at a tax rate lower than the person who's making $30,000 a year when they're making $2, $3, $5, $10, $20 million a year. And so what I say is, I raised the tax rate back to the highest rate to 39.6%. If you have a capital gain, you pay 39.6%. If you're in a 20% tax bracket, you have a capital gain, you pay 20% of that tax. That raises close to $700 billion. My point is there's easy ways without punishing anybody that we in fact equalize the tax structure so ordinary people can in fact be rewarded. We have to reward work as much as we reward wealth. Why do we spend more time rewarding wealth when there's no evidence that it increases productivity any more than the first is out there breaking their neck and doing it and making an hourly wage or a yearly salary? And so there's a whole range of things we can do. But it doesn't cost as Medicare for all. I appreciate the intention, but you know what it costs. And if you notice, a couple of the candidates said, I'm not going to tell you how much it costs because it's confusing. One of the leading candidates said, I'm not going to tell you what it costs because it's confusing. $35 trillion over 10 years. Hear me? That's $3.5 trillion a year. That's more than the entire federal budget. You'd have to double the entire budget, what we spend on every single thing. And it's not going to happen. You already have Democrats in the House saying we won't vote for that. So the point I'm making is that there's ways to get these things done and to do them in a rational way the American people are ready to accept. They don't. I'm against anybody who wants to do away with Obamacare, no matter whether it's the President of the United States or my leading competitors. There's a number of things we're going to do. Right off the bat, first of all, if you in fact are in college, right now if you graduate, there's a program that allows you to qualify to not have to pay back more than 10% of your college debt after your, what they call your disposable income. So after you pay your rent, your car, your housing, everything, whatever's left, you pay 10% of that. I cut that in half to 5%. But if you go into public service, you pay nothing. And it's about public service. That's what it's about. It's also, and by the way, I understand I was listed as, when I was a United States Senator, as the poorest man in Congress. For real, for 36 years. Not that I was real proud of it, but it was. Because I thought it was inappropriate for me to make money while I was a congressperson. I didn't think that was what it was about. And when I did my financial disclosure as vice president, one of the press outlets said, it's probable no man has ever assumed the office of vice president with fewer assets than Joe Biden. I didn't think they were speaking intellectual assets, financial assets. So I borrowed everything I could at the time that housing was going up to get my kids to school. My boys worked 30 hours a week during college and to help pay for college. And they went on to law school, each of them. My daughter went on to graduate school and got a degree in social work. And they all graduated with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. I mean, literally, because they didn't go to a great school like I did, the University of Delaware, a public university. They went to Yale, they went to, those lousy schools, But all kidding aside, I borrowed everything I could. But why would we do this? Because one of the things that's happening is it's expected that the economy is going to slow because the younger part of the millennial generation is not in a position to be able to buy a home, not in a position to invest in a new automobile, not invested in it because they're still paying off their college loans. So it's overwhelmingly in the interest of the economy overall if we give them a way out and generate more public service. With your permission, can I say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
The single most important issue we didn't get to talk about, but go on my website. The single existential threat to humanity is global warming. When I'm the guy that helped put together the Paris Climate Accord and got China to join, it's time we, in fact, act. We can begin it immediately, and I might add, the farmers of Iowa and the farmers around America can be the first group of people in America to get to net zero emissions by absorbing carbon from the air, by increasing conservation areas, by getting paid to deal with not only cellulosics and what we're going to do, but planting deep root plants. There's so many things we can do to increase the economic growth, and guess what? It'll create a minimum of 10 million new good paying jobs. Thank you all.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like this political content, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.